Welcome back to Brokers of Secrets, episode 3. Now, this is quite an episode for applications, for how do you apply what we talked about in episode 2, for how do you optimize your identity now that you understand where they may be coming from, what they may be doing, and even some of the programs that you're experiencing. And program meaning here's A causes B, and B causes C. That's basically a program that exists in our minds. Of course, there are many forms. There's this equals that, and that causes this other thing, that causes this other thing. And programs are typically connected in our minds by equal signs or cause and effect signs in the most basic format. Now, you could imagine in our lives, we've made many of these connections. We've thought, oh, if I do X, Y, Z, like when we were kids, my parents and your parents or other people's parents may say, hey, if you work hard, you're going to be able to succeed. Problem is, how many people have you seen that work really hard and don't succeed? Many. So what's the difference between those who work hard and succeed and those who work hard and don't succeed? Well, it depends on what they're focusing on doing. You can work really hard at doing dishes. That does not make you a millionaire, right? Unless you have an enterprise doing dishes for other companies. But even then, right, can you go to another level and another level, maybe becoming a billionaire? It is possible. That requires a system. No longer are you now doing dishes at that point, right? You're managing, you're leading, you're investing, you're growing it. So that's not what... I mean, if people say just work hard and you'll be successful, that's not a great advice. However, it's a great advice for many people who don't work hard or don't know how to work hard or have never worked before, right? They don't have legitimate feedback from their reality. What I want to say is feedback does not have to come from your own learnings. Feedback can come from other people's learnings. The real secret to being massively successful that we've seen in many of our most successful clients is that they leverage other people's lessons, other people's learnings. They leverage other people's money. They leverage other people's time. They leverage other people's systems. Leverage is the key, is the secret. Leverage is how you can begin to even also utilize your own mind to help you succeed. Because if we think about leveraging others and time, money, or resources, that's great and all. This episode is about how do we apply the optimization of your identity. Therefore, you can begin to leverage your own power. So the goal of this episode is if you can leverage your own power, because most of us are under-leveraging our own true power, our own true potential. That would be incredible if you can do that, right? Now, we're going to show you the path. We're going to show you how to do that, the formula. It's up to you to, of course, utilize it. And let me say this first. Leveraging your own power requires an understanding of the context. How much power do you have that you're not using, right? Now, imagine this. Imagine you have $1 in one bank account, and then you have $100 billion in another account. And then all you knew your whole life, you were taught you only have this $1. You're going to feel broke. You're going to feel poor. You're going to feel like you don't have a lot of resources. You're going to feel like there's no freedom to do what you want, buy what you want, and have what you want, right? What you don't know is there's that $100 million or $100 billion or whatever the number is. There's no actually limit in how much you could have in this account. And you have at least 100 million, let's just say, yeah? Well, if you don't know that this account exists, the feeling of just having this account, this one account with $1 in it, is going to be suffocating. It's going to cause you to feel really, well, I think the best word to describe it is scarcity. You're not going to feel as abundant as you could or would if you actually know about this account, right? Well, this is a great metaphor to understanding how much of your power is conscious and how much of your power is unconscious or subconscious. Your subconscious or unconscious, and we're just going to use the same, basically, in our episode here, in our episodes here, we're just going to use them interchangeably. So your subconscious mind has so much power, but most people have never been educated on how to use it, what to use it, how to leverage it, how to optimize it so that you can actually get what you want abundantly. Yeah, and we're all about having you live an abundant life, right? Because abundance is why many people are drawn to us. They're drawn to us not because we're like flashing things at you and saying, "Hey, you could do this or that." There's no promises of that. What we're talking about is people are attracted to us because they understand abundance is not just a state physically. It's a state of mind, and it starts there. And if your state of mind is not abundant, you can have all the physical things and you'll still feel scarcity, and you will still have problems keeping, not to mention making, but at least keeping or hitting your next level. You will have issues with that if you are not operating in a truly abundant mindset. Now, have I ever experienced that? Of course. I've experienced both sides, scarcity, abundance. And it drew me to become so obsessed about understanding the structure of scarcity and abundance and the mental programs behind it. And let me give you the secret here. The secret is, again, your identity. If your identity is that person who only have access, because you've been taught your whole life, what you consciously are aware of, right? And that you work hard at, you will succeed. But the problem is, it's a trap. It's a trap. It's a rat race. As you pursue using that dollar, how much could you really do, right? Spending your life using only the conscious resources, that's actually quite a good ratio. Your conscious mind, they say you can process 126 bits of data, plus or minus 7 bits of data per second. Your subconscious, unconscious mind, some say you can actually process 1,000,000 times a billion, 1,000,000 times a billion bits per second. Now that's insane, right? Sure, there are different schools of thoughts. I argue some are more, some are less. Some say the subconscious is literally infinite. It's a quantum supercomputer. Therefore, there's no finite amount that you can calculate, right? It's billions and billions and billions of times faster than over here, right? 126 bits. Well, that's great. Regardless, I want you to understand the magnitude of difference and contrast. Most of us live a life where we do not identify with true abundance. Therefore, we never go from over here where we're leveraging that $1 or that small teeny percentage to that 100 times a billion, million times a billion bits per second. We're not really using that very much. So here's the secret of the secret. You can't set a goal that does not require you to leverage this part of your mind. If you set a goal that is just big enough that you stay comfortable, you're fine, you're living an okay life, you're like, well, why shoot for the moon when most people don't succeed? 9 out of 10 businesses fail, and most relationships end in, majority, or at least half, end in divorces, or whatever it is, right? People will say these things to justify their reality. But what they don't understand is their reality is justifying their identity, their mental program, their internal worldview. So if you want to go from here, leveraging that teeny percentage of your mind, to leveraging this infinite side of you, truly, truly, truly infinite side of you, what you need to do is set a goal that you cannot work hard enough to achieve, and you have to unlock. Listen to that again. You have to set a goal that's so big, you literally cannot work hard enough to achieve. There's no way you can work hard enough, spend enough time, and do anything to achieve it unless you unlock your resources over here. That will cause your unconscious mind, subconscious mind to open up these resources, these new resources. And the trick to doing that is you set a goal so massive and then you equate your identity to it. Yeah, I am this. I am that. I am this. Now, I'm not talking about affirmations, right? I'm not saying wake up in the morning and say that to yourself in the mirror. What I am saying is get into an altered state, learning how to relax your mind to the point where you can actually begin to communicate with your subconscious unconscious, so that when you actually identify with, I am this massively successful person, I succeed, I win or win bigger, I do things, I go big or I go bigger, rather than the go big or go home dichotomy, it's that you win or you win more, right? If you identify in such a way, and of course you can design, right? Because think about it. Here's the process. I'm going to give you a sequence. So first, you look at setting goals that are so big you cannot possibly work hard enough to achieve. It needs to be insane. It needs to be something that your friends and neighbors will laugh at you. Your family would be like, be realistic, and even go up several notches. You write down these goals, and then you ask yourself the one key question: who do I need to be to achieve this? You put right next to it these attributes that will cause you to be able to naturally and effortlessly achieve these goals. Because remember, it's not about what you do and or your goals, really. It's about you being the person who can effortlessly achieve your goals. So we want to identify the goals that are so impossible, so massive, that it requires you to unlock. And it's probably probably crazier goals than even the impossible goals that you thought previously were impossible. I want you to think outside of the realm of even impossibility, right? And then next to it, you write down the attributes that you would have to possess, you would have to identify with, that you would have to be to then naturally, effortlessly achieve these goals. Now, once you identify these attributes, comes the next step, the installation. The installation is quite interesting. It's a very simple process and yet profound. What we're about to do is I'm going to show you how to basically interact with your own mind in almost like a graphical user interface. Like there's a way for you to objectively interact or interface with your own mind. Because most of the time we're like, well, beliefs, identity, and value, these are very vague concepts, right? No. They're only vague because they don't exist in this very plane, right? It's a different dimension per se. What you need to do is objectify them by giving it visual attributes. And when you do, and we teach all of this in obviously our more advanced trainings and the implementation, but I want you to understand the basic structure of it is very simple. You give it visual attributes so that your mind can map it to the three-dimensional world, and therefore you can interact with it. Simple, right? A vague concept given 3D attributes allows you to interact with your vague concepts that used to be vague, but now it has 3D attributes. It's the same as interacting with your computer. You don't directly interface with your hard drive or your memory, right? Or your CPU. You don't directly do that because you simply can't, right? You have to have an interface. And that front-end interface is what we're building here, but for the human mind. Now, let's get into it. How do you install these attributes? How do you install these attributes that would, if you possess them, allow you to leverage what your true power and capabilities are? And look, you'll never know what your true powers and capabilities are as a human, as a person, if you don't set a goal that's big enough that causes you to challenge what you currently identify with, that causes you to challenge what's possible, right? And again, it's not even about impossible goals. It's about the goals that will necessitate for you to unlock this part of you. Because a lot of people will set impossible goals and they'll dial back and they'll say, well, consciously I can do that. I can see myself working hard for the next 5 years, 10 years to achieve this. No. That's not impossible enough. I want you to go way beyond, which it has to be hard enough, right? Such an impossible goal, so hard according to your mind, so hard to achieve that it's impossible to achieve, not an impossible goal, but impossible to achieve no matter what you do in whatever period of time. Now it gives your unconscious mind a reason to use a different path, which is the opening up of those resources that you have, but you didn't even know you have. Now, This is important. This is another key thing I'll quickly say. If you set goals that you do not have rewards for, your unconscious mind is going to be like, why would I unlock more resources? For what? What's in it for me? Right? Now, sure, you're not separate from your subconscious, but it's interested in preserving your energy, finding the path of least resistance. So the path of least resistance could be simply failing at it and or not doing anything about it. So that's why many people set big goals and don't do anything about it or failing at it. They're like, see, I knew I couldn't do it. And then they just live this loop of going back to using that $1 in their bank account. Well, if you set massive rewards that actually entices your mind, over here, it will want to unlock. Don't need to force it. It will want to unlock. It will desire to unlock. That's the key. Now, back to how do you install? Well, how do you install? First step is actually writing down the rewards that will be given to you, whether by yourself or others, who cares? As long as you are willing to give yourself these rewards, you attach them to the goals and the attributes. So when you become the person, achieve the goals naturally, and of course, you reward yourself. That builds a reward cycle that causes your mind to be drawn towards your goals rather than away from the pains of your life. And that's where when people settle or get complacent, they're like, I don't feel the pain. I'm far enough away from the pains of my past. They don't need to improve much. They're fine. Even though if they hate their relationship, their job, their whatever life that they experience, even if they feel depressed, whatever, they feel comfortable in what's familiar. Even though it doesn't feel comfortable. They like what's familiar, right? They stay with what's familiar. What we're doing here is if you attach enough rewards to what you really want, there's no reward in staying in the past. There's only reward, and it's apparent to your subconscious. Your subconscious mind's like, I am highly rewarded, and incentivized to want to be there, right? Now, let me give you the rest of the installation and finish with a quick metaphor that ties everything together. So you set up the reward, right? After you've identified your goals and the attributes, you set up the rewards. The installation is actually the easiest part. You need to understand where inside your body do you store what is your identity, where your identity is. Now, be very careful. You don't want to install something you don't want, right? I'm giving you some deep level programming, even though it's going to sound ridiculously simple. But I want you to take it very seriously because what we're about to do is I'm going to help you uncover where in this hologram that we call your body and mind, right, which is one, where inside of this hologram do you store this folder, if we were to use programming language, and inside of this folder, you store your identity, the attributes to your identity. If we can insert them into that folder, these attributes that you want, well, you've installed it, right? Now, in the old days of computing, you have to know how to code, right? The DOS days, you had to know how to code to use a computer. But nowadays, kids know how to use phones and tablets and computers easily because it's got a graphical user interface that's very user-friendly. So what we're going to do is create a simple user-friendly interface. So if you are in a safe place where you can close your eyes, even if you couldn't close your eyes, it's fine, but make sure you're in a safe place. As you imagine that there's a folder somewhere in your body, and this is an active imagination exercise, right? Imagine where in your body, if you were to know, where in your body would you have this folder that stores your identity attributes? Don't think about it. Allow your body to point it out by simply moving your hand, feeling where that may be, and your body will direct it to be like, oh, maybe it's right here, maybe it's right here, maybe it's over here. Wherever that is, allow yourself to trust that feeling and point. Where do you store that folder that we call your identity? Point now. Now, as you point at it, I want you to consider what color is that? It should light up in that color, right? Again, allow the color to come to mind. Now, with the color in mind, what's the size and shape of this folder or this location, right? Visualize that. What's the texture and material? Now, that's the location, and now we have a visual representation. That sounds really simple, right? We're not done. Inside of it, if you were to imagine opening it up, you can visualize some of these attributes and the goals that you want to achieve that are tied to these attributes, the occurrences. Now, it's going to take you some time to visualize these things, and you can do it after the episode if you like and get more detail. But you can imagine from the pages or the tablet, the phone, the laptop, what you've typed down, you can imagine those words floating up into that folder and installing themselves inside of it. Give yourself a few seconds to visualize that installation. Yeah. Remember, make sure these are good words, positive words, right? Don't install words like sacrifice. Don't install words that you don't want, right? Don't install words like pain, right? If you follow a lot of influential entrepreneurs or influencers, people will preach sacrifice, hardship. Nothing wrong with that. That being said, do you want to install that, right? And also, the reason it's hard and or it feels like a sacrifice is because that person lacks the resources, the leverage of their ultra powerful side of them, their subconscious. And they frankly also potentially lack the skills and the strategies, right? So it's not hardship that they have to face, is that the hardship points out as a signal that they lack certain leverage and understanding and strategy, right? So you don't want to install those, just a side note. So allow all the words that are positive to float up and insert itself into that folder. And it could be either part of one file or multiple files. And as you install that, you should notice that the folder lighting up each time a really nice attribute, really nice goal gets installed. This is an easy, ultra easy installation, visualization, right? That being said, never underestimate what it can do, even though it's simple. The reason we made it so simple and we test it and we've never seen it not work is because we want it to be simple so it's repeatable and shareable, right? You can share this episode with someone and they can quickly pick up how to do it, right? Share it with your colleagues because you want them to succeed. Share it with your team, your company, because when they do succeed, you succeed as well, right? That is abundance. So now, as you install these attributes, allowing that to flood into your folder, right? To flow up and literally insert itself into that folder. Attributes that are like success, happiness, freedom, joy, right? Total certainty and confidence. These attributes plus many other positive ones, and or the goal of you maybe taking a vacation that you've always wanted with your family, and inviting other families and friends because you're able to pay for them, or even buying something for your kids or your own family or yourself even, right? Buying something that you want, that you've always wanted since you were a kid, being able to give yourself these things and many other goals that you may have, large to extremely large to just whatever it is that you care about, allow those to flood into that identity one. And now, I know this may be a simple installation. Again, the moment it is done, allow the folder to close in completion. And you can use it later, but allow that to close in completion for now. And what you'll find is that as you open your eyes as an indication that the installation is complete, you will find that you feel different. Now, some of you will feel really different. Some of you will feel just somewhat different, or maybe even very similar to how you felt before, but there's like a minute difference. Do this again. Do this again. Get prepared. Write down the attributes. Examine the attributes. Write down the goals. Make sure they're big. And set really exciting rewards. Because remember, your mind is not incentivized to do anything unless there are actually positive rewards. Otherwise, you'd be wasting energy, right? And resources. So as you properly do those things and do the installation again, the impact will increase over time, every time, right? Now, why did we do that? Because that installation, what you just did in the mental realm, will cascade into your value system and your belief system. and it will change how you interact with other people. You will begin to filter out people that waste your time, and you will filter in the people that truly has your best interest in mind and want to create win-win with you. You will begin to attract more and more opportunities, not just because there's whatever you call law of attraction or manifestation. We're talking about scientifically using a graphical user interface to modify how you identify with your reality, and therefore allowing you to change what may be important to you and what you believe. And that naturally, of course, changes your subconscious behaviors that you may or may not even know that you're doing, right? So as you do that, you'll notice the changes cascading into all areas, all layers of you, but all areas of your life as well. And you may find that these results that you thought were absolutely and utterly impossible begins to show hint of themselves becoming not only very possible, but it's like inevitable now. And then you'll continue to increase your confidence, and then you'll find that it's not only inevitable, right? It's really inevitable. It's gonna happen. It's already happened. It's already happened in the future. Now you just have to allow, of course, take action, take massive action, right? But you have to allow yourself to accept that is your reality now. And it will get to a point where you know this feeling. When you know something is truly inevitable, like the sun's going to come up tomorrow, that feeling of inevitability, you don't feel stressed about it. You don't feel pressure. You just feel like it's going to happen. I want you to not just believe. As you do that installation, you will come to know that feeling. And as you do more and more, you become more and more and more knowing, more and more familiar. So to complete this quick episode, I do want to say, if you are not installing your goals and the attributes and the rewards into this folder that we call identity, you may be missing out on leveraging the most powerful leverage, the most powerful resources within you, your subconscious, your unconscious. And people always ask, how do you work with your subconscious? If you could unlock your subconscious, you could do anything. People always say that, right? Well, here's a tangible, easy to follow set of steps. And I'll repeat it one more time. You design your goals that causes you to, these goals has to be so massive that you cannot not unlock. You have to unlock the subconscious, unconscious to achieve them. And then next to these goals, you design the attributes. You write down the attributes that you believe you would need to have to achieve them naturally, right? Not struggling, but naturally, right? And then next to them, write the rewards. The lavish, and it doesn't have to be material, but it has to be something that you feel like, oh man, I'm lavishly rewarding myself. This is the best life. You want rewards that truly entices you and your subconscious. And then you look at the list, the words you use, and of course, you do need to understand the words and the meanings behind the words. You don't want any words that has negative consequences. Pick the words and the goals, the rewards that you find appropriate and are truly rewarding and positive. Install them by visualizing the folder in which you store your identity. Imagining that flooding into your neurology, that all of the success, all the attributes, all the rewards floating out of your notepad, your computer, and then having its own visual representation, and then flooding into that folder, installing themselves, embedding themselves, and the folder closes when you're done, and then it goes right back, right? And then you can open your eyes. As you do this visualization more and more and more, hey, look, it may not have a ton of impact right at the get-go. It's not overnight anyway. However, some pretty interesting things that may not otherwise happen will begin to shift because remember, your reality is programmed by your identity. If you change your identity, which is that folder, this is the most powerful folder you can change. If you create that change inside of that, it's not a matter of if, it's a when which you experience the outcome of that change. So stay alert, watching where this is happening in your life. really keep your eyes open, really keep your ears open, listening and watching where in your life are things happening that may or may not be unusual, may or may not even seem like perhaps even a miracle, things that are people or events, opportunities coming into your life that you're like, wow, I did not expect this could happen this quick. That is amazing, right? Or out of the ordinary, right? As these things begin to occur, write them down, make note of them, remember them. That tells your mind that you are on the right path, right? If you pay attention to them, you're like, yes, this is what I want. You're giving your subconscious mind that is unlocking feedback that, hey, I do want this. Yes, this is what I want. Keep going, keep going. Good job. As you do that, your subconscious mind becomes more and more trained, more and more integrated with you. And remember, your worst enemy in terms of success is never anyone else, but your own subconscious programs. And if you're doing what we're doing and what we're suggesting here in this episode, right? What you're doing is reprogramming that program that resides within your subconscious and leveraging truly your power, therefore allowing you to make your subconscious your most powerful ally. Now, in the next episode, we're going to talk about beliefs and how many people believe they can only have, well, success in the business, but not success in their relationship, their romantic relationship, right? And even if they say consciously that they do believe, they may end up with a divorce. They may end up with a breakup that's really bad, or they find someone that don't excite them, right? And or maybe they find themselves in that situation, even though it's a great relationship, but they unconsciously, subconsciously sabotage their relationship so that they can go out and create whatever it is in their belief system that they have to, once again, not have this to have this, right? And we'll talk about other beliefs like, hey, I believe I can have great health and a great business, but am I living that life, right? Now, these may be so basic, but we're going to get into other things like when you were a kid, as you were growing up, were you told that you weren't tall enough, short enough, pretty enough, fit enough, smart enough, creative enough, and or good enough? In so many ways, people gave you different beliefs growing up. We're going to now get into the belief layer in the next episode. So we'll see you there.